The world, still reeling from the cataclysm of World War II, breathed a collective sigh of fragile relief. Yet beneath the veneer of rebuilding and hope, a chilling current of unease persisted. Whispers, like tendrils of smoke, curled through the war-torn capitals of Europe and beyond, speaking of shadows that refused to dissipate, of ideologies that refused to die. Nazism, though defeated on the battlefields, seemed to linger, a malevolent ghost haunting the fringes of peace. Its insidious tendrils, many feared, were merely biding their time, waiting for an opportune moment to resurface. In this nascent era of geopolitical reconstruction, a fledgling intelligence agency known as the Mossad was struggling to find its footing. Born from the ashes of unimaginable suffering, its primary directive was to ensure that the horrors of the Holocaust would never be repeated. However, resources were scarce, and the global landscape was a chaotic mosaic of shifting alliances and hidden agendas. Their reach was limited, their influence often underestimated, and their warnings frequently dismissed as the overzealous anxieties of a traumatized people. It was during these uncertain times that the first fragmented intelligence reports began to trickle in. They spoke of unusual activity in a remote, undisclosed location somewhere in the desolate expanses of South America. The details were sparse, contradictory even, hinting at strange shipments, guarded convoys, and an unnerving silence cloaking an otherwise bustling operation. These initial dispatches were often filed away, dismissed by many within the agency as the product of overactive imaginations or the lingering paranoia of informants who had seen too much. Among the Mossad's ranks was Ilyas, a seasoned operative whose eyes carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken tragedies. The Holocaust had claimed his entire family, leaving him with a void that no passage of time could ever truly fill. His commitment to the Mossad's mission was absolute, fueled by a relentless drive to prevent another such atrocity. Yet even Elias, pragmatic and grounded in reality, initially dismissed these vague reports. He had chased countless dead ends, pursued phantoms born of fear, and had learned to temper his expectations. The idea of a resurgence, a clandestine Nazi operation, felt too fantastical, too much like a nightmare from which he had barely escaped. It was simply paranoia, he believed, a collective trauma manifesting as suspicion. Then, a cryptic message arrived, disrupting the quiet resignation that had settled within him. It was from an old contact, a man named Mendel, a fellow survivor of Auschwitz, whose spirit, against all odds, had remained unbroken. Mendel, now living in a quiet corner of South America, had always possessed an uncanny ability to sniff out trouble, a sixth sense honed by years of living on the knife edge of survival. His message was brief, delivered through a convoluted network of trusted intermediaries, each step designed to evade detection. "The ghosts are building machines," it read, the words stark and unsettling. "Machines of war. They whisper of a new dawn." The phrase, "ghosts building machines," burrowed into Elias's mind, unsettling the carefully constructed walls of his skepticism. Mendel was not prone to exaggeration, nor was he a man to cry wolf. His words carried the chilling ring of truth, a raw authenticity that transcended the vague intelligence reports. Elias reread the message, the ink blurring slightly before his eyes. The casual dismissal he had offered to his colleagues, the quiet certainty that it was all just lingering fear, began to crack. A cold, creeping suspicion took root, intertwining with the deep-seated dread he thought he had buried. Could it be true? Could the monstrous ideology he had fought so desperately to extinguish truly be stirring again, not as a ghost, but as a tangible, terrifying force? The possibility, once unthinkable, now loomed large, threatening to drag him back into the very darkness he had sworn to leave behind. The unsettling phrase resonated deeply within Elias, shaking the foundations of his carefully maintained composure. He knew Mendel's words were not to be taken lightly. They carried the weight of shared suffering and an unwavering commitment to truth. Without official sanction, Elias began his covert investigation, driven by a gnawing feeling in his gut that this was far more than mere paranoia. His first steps involved meticulously sifting through the archives, cross-referencing the vague reports from South America with disappearance records of known Nazi scientists and engineers. It was a painstaking process, often yielding only frustration, but Elias was relentless. He worked late into the nights, fueled by strong coffee and a burning sense of urgency, poring over dusty files and faded photographs, searching for any pattern, any connection that could validate Mendel's cryptic warning. Slowly, painstakingly, a disturbing picture began to emerge. He uncovered a network, a shadowy web of individuals who had seemingly vanished without a trace in the immediate aftermath of the war. These weren't just low-level functionaries. They were brilliant minds, specialists in rocketry, chemical warfare, advanced metallurgy, and biological research, the architects of the Third Reich's most terrifying innovations. Their sudden, collective disappearance had been largely attributed to the chaos of post-war Europe, many presumed dead or living under assumed identities in obscurity. But Elias now saw something more sinister, a coordinated exodus, a deliberate vanishing act. As he delved deeper, memories of the war, vivid and brutal, resurfaced with an intensity that often left him breathless. He remembered the desperate scramble for survival, the stench of burning flesh, the hollow eyes of those condemned. He saw his family's faces, their laughter extinguished, their futures stolen. These haunting flashbacks didn't deter him. Instead, they ignited a fiercer resolve. This wasn't just another case. It was a personal crusade, a fight against the very evil that had scarred his soul. The thought that these perpetrators might be regrouping, rebuilding, fueled his determination to an almost feverish pitch. He wouldn't allow history to repeat itself. Then, a crucial piece of evidence surfaced, not from official channels, but from an old contact in the black market of historical artifacts. It was a small, leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age, bearing the distinctive insignia of the Schutzstaffel. The journal belonged to Dr. Klaus Richter, a name Elias recognized with a jolt of dread. Richter had been a brilliant, albeit sadistic, geneticist known for his radical theories on human enhancement and his close ties to Himmler's inner circle. His disappearance had always been particularly perplexing. Elias carefully opened the journal, his fingers tracing the faded ink. The entries were meticulously coded, a complex cipher that spoke volumes about Richter's paranoia and his desire for secrecy. It took Elias days, working in isolation, to crack the initial layers of the code. What he found sent a shiver down his spine. The journal entries spoke of Project Chimera, a clandestine initiative aimed at perfecting humanity and developing transcendent weapons. Richter wrote of a new dawn for the Reich, not as a political entity, but as a scientific and technological superpower, rising from the ashes to usher in a new world order. He detailed experiments, theoretical breakthroughs, and logistical plans for a hidden complex, a sanctuary where their dark work could continue unimpeded. Elias realized the potential scale and danger of the operation were far beyond anything he had initially imagined. This wasn't a handful of old men clinging to a dying ideology. This was a well-funded, meticulously planned resurgence, leveraging cutting-edge science for unimaginable destruction. The implications were chilling. He knew he could no longer proceed alone. Finally, with a heavy heart and the journal clutched in his hand, Elias presented his findings to the Mossad director. The director, a pragmatic man named Cohen, listened intently, his expression shifting from skepticism to grim concern as Elias laid out the evidence. The missing scientists, the coded journal, the chilling references to Project Chimera. There were still lingering doubts among some senior agents who questioned Elias's solitary methods and the fantastical nature of his claims. But the undeniable weight of the evidence, coupled with Elias's unshakable conviction, compelled Cohen to take action. The Mossad, though cautiously, finally took notice, acknowledging that the shadow of the past might indeed be far more substantial and far more dangerous than anyone had dared to imagine. With the Mossad's reluctant backing, Elias moved swiftly, understanding that hesitation could prove catastrophic. He needed a team, Not just any team, but individuals whose skills were as sharp as their resolve. His choice fell upon Sarah, a brilliant cryptographer whose mind operated with the precision of a finely tuned machine, capable of unraveling the most intricate codes. Her quiet demeanor belied a fierce intellect and an unwavering focus. The other key member was David, an infiltrator of unparalleled skill, a phantom who could slip through defenses unseen, unheard. His past was shrouded in mystery, rumored to involve clandestine operations during the war that even the most seasoned agents spoke of in hushed tones. Together, this small elite unit represented Elias's best hope. Their first task was to track Dr. Richter's last known movements, a trail that led them deep into a desolate, mountainous region, a place where jagged peaks clawed at the sky and silence reigned supreme. The landscape itself seemed to guard ancient secrets, cloaked in mist and foreboding. As they approached the suspected area, the team encountered unexpected resistance. It wasn't overt. There were no armed patrols initially, but rather a sophisticated web of hidden sensors and tripwires, far beyond what any local militia or isolated group could deploy. This was the work of professionals, well-funded and meticulously organized. David, with his innate sense for such things, was the first to detect the subtle disturbances in the natural environment, a barely perceptible hum, an unnatural pressure change in the air. He managed to infiltrate the outer perimeter, a daunting task that involved navigating sheer rock faces and dense, thorny thickets. What he discovered confirmed their suspicions. Advanced surveillance technology, camouflaged with chilling ingenuity, blanketed the entire valley. Thermal imaging cameras, motion sensors, and even seismic detectors were seamlessly integrated into the rugged terrain, creating an invisible shield around whatever lay hidden within. Meanwhile, Sarah worked tirelessly back at their makeshift base camp, a hidden cave carved into the mountainside. She had been tasked with deciphering the remaining coded entries from Richter's journal, entries that spoke of Project Chimera's core function. Hours blurred into days as she pored over the cryptic symbols, her brow furrowed in concentration. Then, a breakthrough. A partial code revealing fragmented but terrifying details. Words like isotope enrichment, biological agents, and delivery systems began to emerge from the jumble of characters. The complex wasn't just a hideout for old Nazis. It was a state-of-the-art facility dedicated entirely to weapon development. A dark forge where instruments of unimaginable destruction were being crafted. The implications of Sarah's discovery sent a cold dread through Elias. He had initially feared a resurgence of political power, a new Nazi party. But this was far more insidious, a scientific and technological threat designed to bypass conventional warfare, to unleash terror on a global scale. The team now fully understood the magnitude of their undertaking. They were not merely chasing ghosts. They were confronting a well-funded, highly organized operation, one that wielded cutting-edge science with the same ruthless efficiency that had characterized the Third Reich. Their mission had just become infinitely more dangerous, and the stakes for the entire world had just been raised to an unbearable height. The team, now acutely aware of the existential threat they faced, meticulously began to map the hidden complex, deep within the unforgiving embrace of the mountains. David, utilizing his exceptional stealth and reconnaissance skills, ventured closer, his every movement a testament to years of rigorous training. He spent days observing, a ghost among the rocks, sketching out the facility's vast expanse. It was an underground city, a labyrinth of reinforced concrete and steel, burrowed into the earth like a malignant tumor. He documented entry points, ventilation shafts, and the intricate network of roads carved into the mountainside, leading to what appeared to be disguised entrances. Through powerful telescopic lenses, Elias and Sarah watched from a distant camouflaged perch, their hearts heavy with a grim realization. They observed workers, a steady stream of figures moving with a weary resignation, their faces gaunt and their movements sluggish. Many appeared to be forced laborers, their ill-fitting uniforms and haunted expressions painting a stark, chilling picture. These captives were under the strict, watchful supervision of guards, identifiable by their crisp, familiar uniforms and the unmistakable insignia that sent a shiver down Elias's spine. The sight was a sickening echo of a past he had fought so hard to bury, a past that now clawed its way back into the present with terrifying clarity. David's reports, relayed via secure, encrypted channels, confirmed their worst fears regarding the complex's internal structure. He had managed to place microsensors near key access points, feeding them audio and thermal data. His intelligence painted a terrifying picture, evidence of chemical and biological research facilities, clearly delineated and highly secured. He described the distinct hum of centrifuges, the sterile chill of laboratories, and the pungent, acrid smell that occasionally wafted from ventilation shafts, hinting at dangerous experiments within. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering, far exceeding anything they had anticipated. Then came the chilling discovery, a detail that solidified the true horror of Project Chimera. During one of his deeper penetrations of the perimeter, David photographed blueprints that had been carelessly left exposed in a temporary guard post. Sarah, with her expertise, quickly deciphered the schematics. They were blueprints for a new generation of devastating weapons. Not crude bombs or conventional artillery, but sophisticated designs for chemical nerve agents, airborne biological pathogens, and even a rudimentary concept for a radiological dispersal device, a dirty bomb. These were weapons designed for mass destruction, instruments of terror far beyond the scope of traditional warfare. Elias, studying the photographs, felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He recognized the stark, angular script on the blueprints, the precise, almost artistic rendering of destruction. More disturbingly, he saw familiar symbols and insignia etched into the corner of some documents, subtle but unmistakable markers of the Third Reich. His wartime past, the unspeakable horrors he had witnessed, surged back with an overwhelming force, confirming his worst fears. This was no rogue splinter group. This was a meticulously planned resurgence, a dark phoenix rising from the ashes of a defeated ideology. During one particularly tense observation session, the team narrowly avoided detection. A routine patrol of Nazi guards, their faces grim and their rifles held ready, passed within meters of their hidden position. Elias, his breath held tight, could almost feel their presence, the cold steel of their weapons. It was a close call, a stark reminder of the constant peril they faced. The incident underscored the unwavering vigilance of their adversaries and the brutal efficiency with which they maintained their secrecy. As the days turned into weeks of relentless surveillance, the scale of the threat became horrifyingly clear. This wasn't merely a group of fanatics clinging to a lost cause. It was a well-funded, technologically advanced operation capable of unleashing unprecedented devastation. The potential for a resurgence of Nazi power, armed with weapons that could reshape the global landscape, was no longer a theoretical nightmare, but a looming, terrifying reality. Elias understood, with a profound and sickening certainty, that if this facility was allowed to continue its work, the world would once again be plunged into an abyss of darkness. The time for observation was drawing to a close. The time for action was fast approaching. Elias returned to Mossad headquarters, his face etched with exhaustion, but his resolve burning brighter than ever. He presented his overwhelming evidence, detailed photographs of the complex, intercepted communications, Sarah's deciphered blueprints, and David's meticulous sketches of the weapon designs. He spoke with a quiet intensity, relaying the chilling details of the chemical and biological research, the forced labor, and the undeniable insignia of the Third Reich. The room, usually bustling with the low hum of intelligence analysis, was silenced by the gravity of his report. The Mossad leadership, a council of seasoned, often cynical agents, listened intently, their initial skepticism replaced by a palpable unease. An internal debate immediately erupted within the Mossad's high command. Some argued for a direct, immediate assault, echoing Elias's fervent belief that every moment wasted increased the global peril. They spoke of preemptive strikes, surgical operations to neutralize the threat before it could fully materialize. Others, however, cautioned against such rash action, advocating for continued covert intelligence gathering. They feared a diplomatic crisis of unprecedented proportions, a potential international incident that could destabilize the fragile post-war peace. The political ramifications of attacking a secret facility, potentially on foreign soil and involving a resurrected Nazi threat, were immense and terrifying to contemplate. Elias, standing firm amidst the heated arguments, passionately argued for immediate action. He painted vivid pictures of the devastating weapons they were constructing, emphasizing the speed with which they were progressing. He warned that if these weapons were deployed, the scale of destruction would dwarf anything the world had ever seen, making the atrocities of the war seem like a mere prelude. The very existence of the complex, he argued, was a declaration of war against humanity, and waiting was a luxury they could not afford. A dissenting voice rose from the back of the room. General Steiner, a highly decorated officer known for his strategic acumen and cautious approach. Steiner, his gaze steady and unwavering, advocated for patience. He spoke of the need to gather more intelligence, to understand the full scope of the network, and to identify all collaborators before making a move. He feared that a premature strike, even if successful, could alert other hidden cells, scattering the threat and making it impossible to contain. He also raised the specter of a diplomatic crisis, warning that an unauthorized military operation could be perceived as an act of aggression, potentially sparking wider conflicts and undermining the Mossad's international standing. His words, though measured, carried significant weight, swaying some of the wavering council members. As this internal struggle unfolded, Sarah and David, continuing their remote surveillance, uncovered a truly disturbing betrayal. Their intercepted communications, painstakingly pieced together, revealed a high-ranking official within a supposedly neutral European government collaborating directly with the Nazis. This official was not merely turning a blind eye. He was actively facilitating the movement of resources, providing cover, and suppressing any inquiries that might expose the complex. The revelation sent a fresh wave of shock through the Mossad, highlighting the insidious reach of the resurrected Nazi network and the depth of its infiltration. Elias, witnessing the internal divisions and grappling with the new intelligence, faced a profound personal crisis of conscience. He had pledged his life to preventing another Holocaust, to ensuring that the darkness of the past would never again engulf the world. Now, he weighed the immense risks of his mission against the potential for global catastrophe. A direct assault could lead to massive casualties, both for his team and potentially for innocent civilians if the weapons were detonated prematurely. Yet inaction could spell the end of civilization as they knew it. The weight of the world, it seemed, rested squarely on his shoulders. The clock was ticking, each second bringing them closer to either salvation or unimaginable destruction, and the ultimate decision, he knew, would fall to him. The internal debates raged, but Elias, driven by an unshakable conviction and the horrifying intelligence he'd gathered, made a unilateral decision. He would not wait for bureaucratic approvals or diplomatic niceties while the world teetered on the brink. Defying some of the more cautious orders from within the Mossad, he began to meticulously craft a daring plan for a surgical strike against the mountain complex. His strategy was audacious, focusing not on a full-scale assault, which risked collateral damage and the potential escape of key figures, but on a precise neutralization of the facility's operational capacity, targeting key personnel and, most critically, destroying the weapons prototypes. Sarah, her mind a whirlwind of complex algorithms and structural schematics, immersed herself in the architectural plans and intercepted communications. Hours blurred into days as she analyzed every minute detail, searching for a weakness, a chink in the formidable armor of the Nazi stronghold. Her intense focus finally yielded a critical vulnerability: the complex's power grid. It was an intricate network designed for redundancy, but Sarah identified a singular, crucial nexus point, a primary substation that, if compromised correctly, could plunge the entire facility into darkness and chaos, disrupting their advanced security systems and creating a window for infiltration. It was a risky gambit, requiring impeccable timing and execution, but it offered the best chance of success. Meanwhile, David, the team's master infiltrator, meticulously prepared for his high-risk entry. He studied the complex's layout, memorizing patrol routes, guard rotations, and potential blind spots. His mission was clear: penetrate the outer defenses, navigate the darkened corridors once the power failed, and reach the main laboratory where Dr. Richter and his most dangerous creations resided. He practiced every movement, every silent takedown, every contingency, knowing that a single misstep could doom the entire operation. His face, usually a mask of calm professionalism, now carried a subtle tension, the weight of the impending mission pressing down on him. Tensions within the small team were palpable. The air crackled with a mixture of determination and unspoken fear. They were a small unit, vastly outnumbered and outgunned, preparing to strike at the heart of a resurrected evil. Each member understood the immense risks involved, the potential for failure, and the very real possibility that they might not return. Yet there was also a fierce resolve, a shared commitment to preventing another global catastrophe. Preparations were made in hushed tones, equipment checked and rechecked, every detail scrutinized. One evening, as the last rays of twilight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Elias found Sarah poring over maps, her brow furrowed in concentration. He approached her, a rare softness in his eyes. He spoke of the echoes of the past, the faces of those lost, and the driving force behind his relentless pursuit of justice. Sarah, usually guarded, reciprocated, sharing a glimpse into her own personal history, the quiet suffering of a family shattered by the war. In that brief, vulnerable moment, a profound connection solidified between them, a shared trauma that transcended their professional roles, binding them in a common purpose that went far beyond duty. It was a silent acknowledgement of the heavy burden they both carried, a fleeting solace found in mutual understanding. Under the cloak of a moonless night, the team departed. Their vehicle, a nondescript utility van, blended seamlessly into the desolate landscape as it wound its way through the rugged terrain. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the rhythmic beat of their own hearts. Each member sat in stoic silence, their gazes fixed on the dark, imposing silhouette of the mountains ahead, where the Nazi stronghold lay hidden, a festering wound on the face of the earth. They were heading towards the enemy, towards a confrontation that would either secure humanity's future or plunge it back into an abyss of darkness. The fate of the world now rested on their shoulders. The infiltration began under the shroud of darkness, a symphony of silenced footsteps and hushed commands. David, a phantom in the night, moved with unnerving grace, his every action precise and calculated. He bypassed the initial perimeter defenses with practiced ease, his specialized tools making quick work of electronic locks and pressure plates. Yet the moment he breached the inner compound, the carefully orchestrated silence shattered. A tripwire, almost imperceptible, activated a searing alarm, its shrill cry tearing through the night. Immediately, the complex erupted into a frenzy of activity. Searchlights crisscrossed the courtyard, and the guttural shouts of Nazi guards pierced the air. Explosions ripped through the night as Sarah executed her part of the plan. The primary substation, targeted with pinpoint accuracy, detonated with a blinding flash, plunging the entire facility into an eerie, flickering darkness. Emergency generators sputtered to life, casting long, dancing shadows that distorted the figures of scrambling guards, turning them into monstrous caricatures. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions, the sharp crack of rifles answered by the more controlled bursts from the Mossad team's suppressed weapons. Elias, leading the main assault, directed his small unit with unwavering resolve. Their movements fluid and coordinated, even amidst the chaos. They advanced methodically, neutralizing threats with brutal efficiency, their faces grim masks of determination. David, now deep within the darkened corridors, found himself in a brutal, close-quarters engagement. A patrol rounded a corner unexpectedly, their flashlights momentarily blinding him. He reacted instantly, a blur of motion. One guard fell silently, his neck snapped with practiced speed. Another met David's elbow with crushing force, collapsing in a heap. The third, momentarily stunned, raised his rifle, but David was faster, disarming him with a swift, brutal twist before delivering a knockout blow. His movements were a deadly dance, a testament to years of rigorous training and an innate talent for hand-to-hand combat. He was a living weapon, cutting a path towards the main laboratory with grim purpose. Ilias, pushing through the last line of resistance, finally reached the massive steel door of the central laboratory. It hissed open to reveal a scene of chilling scientific depravity. Test tubes glowed with unknown chemicals. Complex machinery whirred softly, and in the center of it all, illuminated by the flickering emergency lights, stood Dr. Richter. The scientist, impeccably dressed even amidst the unfolding disaster, turned slowly, a chillingly calm smile playing on his lips. "Ah, Elias," he purred, his voice devoid of surprise. "I knew you would come. A man cannot escape his destiny, can he?" Richter gestured grandly at the array of prototypes surrounding them, grotesque metallic creations that hummed with latent power. "Behold, Elias, the future. Project Chimera is complete. A new dawn for the Reich, forged in the ashes of your pathetic world order. These weapons, they will ensure our rightful place, a Fourth Reich that will never fall." His eyes gleamed with a fanatic's fervor, a madness that transcended mere ambition. He spoke of global domination, of cleansing the world, of a twisted vision of genetic purity and technological supremacy, all enabled by the devastating power of his creations. A desperate struggle ensued. Elias, fueled by years of suppressed rage and the memories of countless victims, lunged at Richter. The scientist, surprisingly agile for his age, dodged, then retaliated with a concealed blade. The clash was not merely physical, it was a visceral confrontation between ideologies, between the enduring evil of Nazism and the relentless pursuit of justice. Elias fought not just for his life, but for the very soul of humanity, determined to prevent Richter's monstrous vision from ever seeing the light of day. Just as Elias gained the upper hand, delivering a decisive blow, the entire facility shuddered violently. Sarah's final objective was achieved. The secondary power core, overloaded and destabilized, began its terminal countdown. Alarms blared, louder and more insistent, signaling imminent structural collapse. The complex, a monument to a resurrected horror, was beginning to self-destruct, its dark secrets about to be buried forever. The team, their objectives completed, knew their time was running out. The ground beneath Elias's feet bucked violently, throwing him against a console just as Richter crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Sirens shrieked, a cacophony of impending doom, as exposed wires sparked and burst, casting dancing shadows across the laboratory. David appeared in the doorway, his face grim, a silent signal that their work was done, and their time was critically short. "Elias, we have to go now!" he yelled over the rising crescendo of collapsing metal and groaning concrete. Elias snatched a data drive from Richter's pocket, a last, crucial piece of evidence, and followed David, leaving the architect of a new global nightmare to his fate in the rapidly disintegrating facility. They sprinted through smoke-filled corridors, the air thick with dust and the acrid smell of ozone. The entire complex was a death trap, groaning under its own weight, a testament to Sarah's precise and devastating sabotage. Explosions ripped through sections of the facility behind them, each blast propelling them forward with a desperate urgency. They found Sarah waiting at a prearranged rendezvous point, her face streaked with grime, but her eyes alight with fierce determination. "The main exit is collapsing," she shouted, pointing towards a secondary escape tunnel. They plunged into the darkness, navigating the narrow passage as the very earth trembled around them. Rubble rained down, threatening to bury them alive, but their training and shared will to survive pushed them onward. They emerged into the cold night air, gasping, just as the mountain behind them seemed to sigh, swallowing the last visible remains of the complex in a cloud of dust and rock. They had made it out, barely, leaving behind a tomb of twisted metal and shattered dreams. The world would soon learn of the horror that had been narrowly averted. Mossad, initially hesitant, now moved with swift, decisive action. The data drive Elias had recovered provided irrefutable proof of Project Chimera. Detailed schematics of the advanced weaponry, lists of collaborators, and Richter's chilling manifesto for a Fourth Reich. The news sent shockwaves across international intelligence communities. Governments that had been slow to believe the whispers of a Nazi resurgence were now confronted with the terrifying reality of a secret complex churning out weapons of mass destruction. Diplomatic crises erupted as nations scrambled to account for their complicity, however unwitting in allowing such a threat to fester. The swift neutralization of the program, led by the Mossad, became a silent testament to vigilance, a stark reminder that the shadows of history could still lengthen and threaten to engulf the present. Elias, though physically battered and emotionally drained, felt a profound, quiet sense of accomplishment. The nightmares of the camps, the faces of his lost family, still haunted him, but they no longer held the same suffocating grip. He had confronted the ghost of his past, the very embodiment of the evil that had stolen so much from him, and he had won. The Mossad, despite his initial insubordination, recognized his unparalleled heroism. General Steiner, once his staunchest critic, offered a respectful nod, acknowledging that Elias's intuition and courage had saved countless lives. Yet the mission left lingering questions. How many other such complexes existed? How deep did the network of former Nazis and their sympathizers truly run? The fight against extremism, against the insidious ideology that had once threatened to consume the world, was far from over. It was a continuous struggle, a testament to the enduring vigilance required to safeguard humanity. In a quiet moment of reflection, Elias stood overlooking the vast expanse of the Mediterranean Sea. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. He thought of Sarah and David, who had departed on new assignments, their shared ordeal forging an unbreakable bond. He thought of the victims, past and future, and the unwavering commitment required to protect them. The scars on his soul remained, but they were now interwoven with a new strength, a quiet resolve. The shadows of the past would always be there, but Elias and those like him would stand as beacons, ensuring that humanity would never again be consumed by the darkness they had just vanquished. The legacy of their mission was not just the destruction of a weapon, but the enduring fight for a future free from hatred, a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who dared to confront evil.